So let's create a simple shell in Go. If you don't know what a shell is, check out this video. Let's create the basic setup for our project. I'll create a directory called my shell and cd into that directory. Now create a file called main.go where all of the shell code will be written, and open this file using a text editor. I'll use NeoVim. Now define the main package and create the main function, which will be the entry point to our code. Okay, now as you know that a shell is a kind of REPL, which stands for read, evaluate, print and loop. So we need some kind of loop to keep the shell interactive. For example, this is the shell I'm using. It is Zeesh. You might be on bash. So you can input any command, like I'm using ls, and it evaluates that command and prints the output, and then again asks for another input, like it runs in a loop. So we need that kind of behavior in our program, so we can use a for loop here. And okay, in normal shells you can see that there is some text before the cursor. As you can see, here it is. So this is usually called a prompt, and this might display some useful information about which directory you are on or what is your host name. So we can implement this in our shell using a print statement. So we can show here like this. Okay, so now we need some kind of mechanism to get the input from the user. So I'll create a reader that will read from the standard input. So I'll use the buff.io library, and it will read from the standard input. So stdin. Now let's get the input from the user. So it will get the input from the user until it receives a new line character, which is \n. So that means when the user presses enter, we should stop the reading. Let's do some error handling. If the reading is not successful, we will print the error to the standard output. And then we will print the error. Now let's test if the program works or not. So first we will print the input. So we can see that the input is received or not. Let's run our program. So as you can see, it is working as expected. For now, our program only prints the command provided by the user. So we need some kind of function to run the actual command. So let's create that function. So I'll create the function called exec input. It will receive the input string, and it will return an error if the command is invalid. Now let's trim the new line character received during the reading of the input. I will use the trim suffix function. Now let's do some string parsing to get the individual arguments from the input. So args will be we will split based on a space. Now let's run the command. We will use the exec library. We will set the standard input and output. If there is an error, it will be printed in the standard output. Finally, we will run the command. So if the command returns an error, we will return the error. So let's run our program. Wait. Okay, so we are not calling the function, that's the problem. Let's call the function. If the error is not nil, we will do the same thing here. Okay, so let's run it again. As you can see, our program is running fine. One thing to note here is that the cd command will not work, as you can see here. The actual reason is that the cd is not an actual program, it's the functionality provided by the shell itself. So we have to implement it ourselves. So let's create it. So we will use a switch statement. If the input is cd, we will check if the path is provided or not, because cd needs a path. So if the path is not provided, we will return an error. So we will change the directory if the path is also provided. We will use the chdr method and pass it the path. If it returns an error, we will return that error. And the other case is that when the user types exit, we need to exit our program. So we will use the exit method. The code will be 0. Let's test our program again. As you can see, it is working fine. CD is also working. So this is how you create a simple shell in Go. You can add more functionality if you want, so I'll leave it at that. Yeah, that's about it.